All right, welcome to the November 18th Helm developers meeting. We have a pretty light agenda today, but we want to kick it off with some announcements before we dive into the discussion items. Bridget, the first one you've got is an update on the schedule for Helm meetings.
I just want to remind everyone that the Helm developers decided to not hold a Helm developer call on Thursday next week because it conflicts with US Thanksgiving, so a lot of people would be out. So if you're planning on coming to the very next call after this one, it will be in 2 weeks on December 2nd.
Yep, so look forward to seeing you there in a couple of weeks. So we have scheduled the next Helm release. Bridget, Bridget, your name's on that one too. So
name on that one, but I'm going to look at Mr. Farina for updates since there is exciting stuff he's been putting into that milestone even today. I don't know if you want to talk about that later or if you want to talk about that at this point, Mr. Farina. You're muted. And also, I just don't know if this affects what date you want that to go out.
No, none of it affects the date because it is the second Wednesday of the month, which is our patch release day. And so we've got stuff that has been slowly getting in there. And so there will be bug fixes. There will be a patch release that's got stuff in it. We are planning on stuff. In fact, CI is broken right now because of stuff merging and we didn't test a particular situation. And the fix is already approved. We're just waiting for CI to pass code scanning specifically for the fix. And but yes, there will be stuff. There will be a patch release. Yay.
I actually have a question about that. Does that mean CI is going to be broken until December 8th? And are we okay with that?
No, CI is broken on main. It was something that was merged yesterday that broke it. And it was actually, they changed something. CI didn't pick up the issue. And it's because there was an earlier fix that actually had the issue in it, but it was masked. And then when it got merged into main is when it showed up. There was none of the CI scripts saw it. So
cool. All right, thanks.
So that milestone has a couple of merge things already and one more to merge thing. Anything people can help with to move that milestone forward?
Certainly. So we have dependency stuff and we need to get the Kubernetes dependency fix stuff in or the update to the Kubernetes dependencies. And last I checked, I didn't think there was a pull request that updated all the Kubernetes stuff together. I could have missed it, but we do need to get a bunch of this stuff updated soon. Yeah.
And that was one of the things we had discussed last week was the Dependabot PRs cannot be merged separately. They need to all be done in the Kubernetes changes all need to be done in one large PR.
Yep. The other ones can be merged separately. And those things should come in, especially since there are some downstream security fixes that happened, and we should be pulling that stuff in.
So if anybody feels like taking that on, we had talked about it a little last week. I'd have to go review the notes to see if anybody had volunteered last week. But that's one we definitely need to make sure we do well and do right. Next announcement is Farina's. You have a triage maintainer announcement.
Sure. Alan, I think I saw you. There you are. You're on the call. Hey, you have the votes now. Congratulations. Afterwards, I will send out an email with the details and we'll get you set up as a triage maintainer. What I would ask is, can you do a pull request against the owner's file? There's a triage maintainer category in there that adds your own name to it. So that way we can go ahead and get that going. I'll send something out to the mailing list where you self-nominated. Otherwise, congratulations and welcome.
Yay.
Thank you so much.
We have oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I thought you guys can hear me. So I was like panicked for a second. But thank you so much. Just so excited to be part of the maintainers and contributing to the Helm upstream, like the real Helm upstream. I was just so excited. I lost my word.
Yeah, welcome. We're very excited to have you. The new triage maintainer category has turned out to be incredibly helpful and productive, and we're looking forward to having you contribute as well and strengthen the Helm project and community.
I do want to say thank you for being patient. I know you submitted that a while ago. We are very slow in our voting, something we've actually talked about needing to improve, and we have to chase people down for votes. So anybody who submits these things has to be patient as we regularly circle back and say, okay, who's voted? Who hasn't looked at it? Who do we need to remind to take a look at it? So thank you, because we are not great at being timely on our voting. It's one of our flaws. As Scott can attest to with his recent go through this.
Thank you.
That said, I know there's currently voting going on, and I realized yesterday that I somehow switched off the mailing thing that sends mail. So I have to figure out how to turn that back on. So that's why I'm being one more excuse about why I'm being bad on voting. Scott, you have an OCI update for us?
Yeah, just real quick. A lot of you probably know that the PR that we discussed a recent week that Josh put together for upgrading aorus to 0.5.0 in Helm was merged. That's great because that refactors to use the new stuff. And I just wanted to note that there are a couple of improvements being made that relate to project maturity and other things that will, ultimately I think what Helm cares about is the backwards compatibility contract, but there are, other things that need to be done for the project to make sure that everyone can trust that, there's a community involvement and issues can be raised and checked out properly. And everybody involved has been doing an awesome job. It's just time for that now. So there has been a recurring meeting for the spec, and now that's being transferred into just a general meeting for the project, and that started today in a few hours. Basically, thanks Josh, thanks Farina, and everybody for all the incredible work over these years. This is just like, as Matt Farina mentioned recently, this is just kind of helping to get it over the finish line. So our goal is still to shoot to have a 1.0 version by January. So I am hoping that some of these things can be addressed and we can define what the blockers are. I believe there's only one. Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that it's really just the container D.
Yeah, so I can clarify a little bit. So Steve's team from Microsoft is doing all sorts of like hyper experimental stuff in the aorus project, but they're going to wait to push that in until after 1.0. So they're going to treat basically what's currently in Helm main as a very stable library. And if they're going to add these experimental things, push it into a 2.0 and maintain stability on the 1.0. So it's good news. I think I'm not exactly sure what it is they want to push in before 1.0, but I don't think from an API perspective, things will change much.
Yeah, and I think from our standpoint, we're interested in the Go API, which brings me to a question here. We are using the aorus Go package, right? And that package is currently at a v0.5 release. And there's this nice warning with construction symbols around it right at the top of the README that says this project is currently under active development. The API may and will change incompatibly from one commit to another. And I think that's going to be kind of a big blocker on us. So what's the path to get that removed and this to have a stable release? Is that the thing by January?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. So I think like we can take that one line out of the README and add some information like I described about 1.0 and these new experimental stuff. But yes, it does say that with construction emojis.
Yeah, so a nice 1.0 on here and then following the SEMVer contract would be a delight because that has been one of my blockers. The other thing to note that I find entirely fascinating is the world of dependencies in this. And I only recently came across this. So aorus depends on container D. And container D depends on Kubernetes packages, the same Kubernetes packages that we import into Helm, except they import older versions. And so for anybody who's following dependencies, that means our Helm binary actually has 2 versions of Kubernetes. And so we do need to keep an eye on some of the container D versioning stuff, or aorus does, to keep up on that, because there are things that we had a newer version of that didn't have security stuff in it. And somebody pinged me about this way down dependency in the tree that had a security issue and their company was flagging. And when I traced it down, it's because we depended on aorus, that depended on container D, that depended on a version of Kubernetes that was older, and that version of Kubernetes had a dependency on a dependency, and it was buried way down there. And so one of the things we probably need to get up on is figuring out how do we keep all these things more up to date because of security.
Yeah, and in short, that's what I mentioned earlier about containerd is that in general, what you're saying is applicable regardless. But one of the major changes that they want to make is to implement Implement the copy API without containerd. So at least that specific issue could be addressed. But either way, yeah, we should make sure that we're aligned.
Yeah, and containerd brings in a ton of dependencies. And so if there was a simpler way to do the same thing we're doing without containerd, it would simplify the code, make smaller binaries, simplify the dependency tree and the security attack surface. It would be wonderful.
Here's the PR, or the work in progress. I'll just put it in the notes.
Okay, thanks.
Another minor update on this front. So I opened a issue that was like, what is all the stuff people want to see in OCI a few weeks ago? The number one thing people are asking for is semantic version matching. And Steve's team is now aware of that. And one of the aorus maintainers is now working on tagless support so that we can do semantic versioning checking within in OCI repo. So it'll be interesting to see because you're not really guaranteed that all tags are semantic versions, but if you're pushing it with Helm, it should be enforced. So,
and that's totally the sweet kind of thing you could put into a 1.1 unless it's going to change.
Exactly. Exactly. Anyway, that's it.
Thanks for the update.
Bridget beat me to it. We have now merged this into the discussion section, and I just want to make sure one of our discussion items was OCI status. Did we just cover that one too, or do we still need a separate? Okay, all right. So we're down to the discussion items. First one on here is the alternative tag delimiter PR, which is 10299. So I dropped the link there in chat. You can take a look at it. Farina, you want to go ahead and introduce that one?
Sure, I added it here. The basic idea is you could have a comment in a template file that's a Helm style comment, right? So comment symbol, Helm, : and then we could have some metadata in there and Helm could use that when it's parsing. And the one example here is the delimiter. So you could say replace the brackets that we have for the delimiters of when you go into something with something else, right? And there's examples in here. And the reason for it is other stuff that you're going to stick into, say, a config map or something. You may want to stick those delimiters in there because another system may end up using it. I think Prometheus uses it, and there's some examples of systems that use this that you can end up sticking in. So how do you end up getting that stuff in nicely? People have wanted to have other delimiters for a while, and this pull request appears to implement it. But it brings in this whole idea of having comments that impact execution in order to do something like this. And so I wanted to bring up, what do people think about it?
And also it does bring up a potential compatibility breaking change that would be slightly broader than those that sometimes slip into templates.
Yeah. I mean, we do add new template functions from time to time, and which means if you're using an older version of Helm, you need to specify the Helm version in the front, in your chart. So that we already kind of have that situation where we add new functions.
Yeah, but if a function is missing, it throws an error if you don't have it. if in this case, it would silently render the entire template and you would have no indication that the chart you were using on Helm, 3.1 was actually a chart that could only be rendered with 3.8, right?
Oh, you're right.
I was wondering if this is where we use chart API versioning for things like this.
Yeah, like this is something that would be charts V3.
Yeah.
Is it V3 or V4? What are we on V2?
It would be V3 because we're a version behind the main Helm version. Wait, we
Yeah.
can solve two problems at once.
Until the next breaking change. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I would candidate for this being, because I think this is a severe breaking change to the template thing.
Yeah.
To the template thing, to Helm charts, to the form of Helm charts. I think we would have to do a version increment on the API version of the chart in order to do this.
So we're probably talking Helm V4 before we get to that. Okay, this makes total sense, which is why I wanted to bring it up here, because I totally forgot the fail silent part.
There may, oh no, I can't. No, because we can't retrofit an old version of Helm to throw an error if it encountered this. Yeah, so I think that's the only way forward on this would be breaking change to the Helm chart version.
That makes sense.
A new major version of the Helm chart.
Yeah, I'll go update the issue and fill in the details on it.
That said, we probably would have to do a HIP, which is on the list, the to-do list for that item. I would want to do a HIP for this particular thing as well. But we should go ahead and just briefly talk about the other stuff, because I know the original committer of this is expecting us to talk through that.
The other stuff?
Didn't you mention that there was a question about using annotation, essentially introducing a macro style annotation?
Oh, that was my question of introducing the macro style annotation.
And I actually think that would be best discussed in a HIP too, because I think if we're going to introduce one instance of this, we might as well cover what n instances of this would look like, right? If we're going to start embedding, how do we embed macro-y kinds of things? How do we embed them?
Yep. Makes sense. All right, that's all I had on that one.
Okay, two more items on here. One from Bridget, one from Matt Farina again. Reproducible builds. Farina, you want to go on into that one? And
sure.
Then we'll do that last one. I think
I'll do it. Looking at the time, under the name of security. Security is becoming a really hot topic lately. If people have not been following what's been going on all over the place, Linux Foundation has a foundation that's getting more steam. There's things like salsa.dev that are coming up now around specifications. That's more widely. It's actually similar to something like common criteria that you'll find in Europe. But these kinds of security things are becoming more prevalent right now. And one of the very first things we could probably tackle is reproducible builds, something you don't get with a chart manifest. It's one of those things that's killed me. If you build that same chart over and over and over again, you actually get a different digest. And it has to do mostly with sort ordering and timestamps. And so one of the first things we could do is here. Now, we had a pull request for doing this, but the person never took into account any of the simple feedback, like you got to put it behind a flag. There were a couple of things in there. And no tests. I don't know if anybody wants to take it on. If not, I probably will as one of the first things, but I wanted to bring it up here and see what people generally thought about it. All right, then I do have
sorry, real quick. In general, absolutely, it's been maddening. And yeah, as long as basically all the comments, I remember this one. So all the comments are still applicable, right? Like as long as we feature flag it, or excuse me, not feature flag. As long as we, ultimately, feature flag it. Sorry. Yes, that's what I meant.
Is this the tar? Is this the tar?
Yes.
Digest?
Yeah.
So
the digest is always different.
In the tar spec, is that it's supposed to be the same? That's the question then, because this really we're using tar libraries, right? So is the tar supposed to always be the same? If the answer is no, then are you going to override the tar, or are you going to create a separate mechanism to actually have another digest for the chart? You know,
No, there's two reasons it's not always the same. One is Go slices, right, are not necessarily ordered the same. And so when you do certain things and you're actually creating the tar, you can just create different things in it out of order, which creates a difference. The other thing, and that's pretty easy because you can just sort. There are certain sorting functions you can use that go ahead and solve it. The harder thing, and the reason you need a flag, is because presently we put a timestamp in, and tars can have a timestamp in them, right? And the timestamp after every build changes because it's a new time. And so therefore everything's going to be different. And that's what ends up creating one of our bigger problems, and why you need a flag, because we're going from having a timestamp to removing the timestamp.
So the timestamp is something we add to the content of the tar. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So by itself, if we don't have that, the tar should then, what you're saying is that if the content is ordered and the actual timestamp is not there inside the tar, then will that tar always be the same digest?
Yeah, for the same version, for the same content.
Yeah. The thing with that is I did a little bit of research. I mean, I'll after this call I'll do a little bit more, but I don't see that as explicitly saying in the tar. When I look at tar itself, it doesn't say explicitly, oh, we're guaranteeing the same digest from tar to tar. The digest is actually something more of a, I want to make sure that once this gets built, this digest does not change, right?
Yeah, the whole idea is if I use Helm package on a directory and I have the same contents in that structure, the output TGZ file should be the same each time, to the point where if I grabbed a digest, my SHA-512 of it, I should have the same SHA of it because it's entirely reproducible. That's our goal, and that's one of the things we would like. But the issue internal, the big one is the timestamp, because we've now said we're going to set it to 0 rather than a timestamp, and that needs a flag.
So if you, the reason I brought it up is if you figure out how to fix it at that level where the actual package has the digest consistently, then go for it. But even if you cannot fix it, there's another way to do it, which is inside you have the SHA for the chart content, not necessarily for the package, but for the chart. You know what I mean? So from that point of view, it's like there'd be two digests to check. One is for the package for consistency, make sure no one tampers with the bits, right? And that continues to be the case. And someone that opens the chart can also check the digest by us providing a mechanism in Helm check digest, right? So,
yeah, that becomes a little bit harder.
It does.
To deal with. It definitely becomes a little bit harder because you can't just use outside tools on it, and now using Helm specific tools and trusting them. And so in your trust pitch, it would be much easier if we could get the TGZ to be the same, and we can't.
All right, just bringing that up. That's an option.
Yeah. Interesting. That would also change the chart spec. It's not backwards compatible, but that's probably okay. There's a simpler way. It would be
Helm will take care of it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and right now, chart automation does backflips. Chart repo automation does backflips in order to work around this.
Yeah.
If you can figure out the tar, that's the easiest way to do it for sure. But if I'm thinking, even if you can, that might be fixable as well.
Okay.
Cool.
That's all I had though. And so look for more security things from me.
Something else on this line. For example, building nowadays in the world of cloud, building could be a job. It could be a job that could run on x86, or it could run on ARM right nowadays, or it could run whatever it runs, right? So from that point of view, if your build happens to be in a different environment, you're gonna be having this issue as well. Even though from a pipeline point of view, you're consistently running the same job, but the job underneath is using a separate architecture, whatever, So from that point of view, you might still have the problem.
That's a good point. I have not tested that. I'll have to find some poor sucker with one of those new M1s to test it.
Or even different operating system, the same architecture. Might be a problem.
But there are now people who have the working on Helm who have the new ARM M1s, And they could
That might be a
probably
little test,
test
yeah.
the code manually and see if they get the same shot as somebody else on the same code. We can
Right,
probably
because-
do some manual testing on that
Right, okay.
to ferret that out. All right. That's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
No problem. Yeah, I thought about this. That's why I remember.
I got distracted right at the end trying to check where we are on wrangling the schedule. Are we done with this topic, or do we need to spend?
We're done. I just suckered you into doing something though. Well, you weren't listening.
He probably did. I was.
And I could tell you were, because I was talking about needing to manually test something across Intel and the new M1 ARM architecture. And I said, there's some poor sucker out there who's going to have to help us here. And I was talking about you.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, I do have an M1. Yeah. And I can totally help with that. Sorry. So I was just realizing that if we're skipping next week, then we should probably have 2 people volunteer for triage, one for this Thursday to next Wednesday and one for next Thursday to the following Wednesday. So if people would like to volunteer for that in the chat, and also we'll need notes and moderator. Bridget, did you the last agenda item now says defer to December 2nd. Do you want to do that rather than try and get that done in this last?
Yeah, we're going to defer that. Kent might even be able to come that one.
Excellent. Okay. I can pick up one of the triaging. I should just take triaging this week. So if anybody would like to take triage, you want to take triage this week, Scott?
Whichever, Matt, whatever is best. Honestly, whatever is most convenient for you. I finally I'm a bit more up to speed on it. So
okay, if you want to take this week, I'll take the next week.
Okay,
because that'll be pretty. It's pretty quiet for me that week. So
okay.
All right. Can we get a note taker and a moderator for December 2nd?
I'll moderate.
Okay.
Second notes.
All right. Excellent. And we are right up on time. So thank you all very much. Again, wanted to close by congratulating Alan, also for whom I believe this is a very late night, if I'm not mistaken. So thanks also for coming to the meeting today. And those of you in the US, enjoy your holiday. Those of you elsewhere, enjoy a week of break time from this meeting. And we'll see you all again on December 2nd.
Cool.
Thanks.
Bye.